Everybody, it's Mel here at Paint, Flowers, and More in Watercolor today. And this is the third time I have recorded this video. So hopefully I've never got all the way through. So this should be great. Um, we are working on flower dots with watercolor. So I did a video earlier. You can find it on my YouTube channel, but it's about making watercolor dots and then making them into flowers. So I got this idea going, well, does it matter how many dots you put in, or does it matter the arrangement of the dots and to what kind of flower it actually is? And so that's what I'm focusing on today. And I'm going to take you over here now and you can see. Okay, so I have my watercolors over here. This is a koi watercolors set over here, which is like my favorite. And I have these three different ones. So we kind of did this one in that class. So we're going to start here. And this came with 5 dots and how I arranged it. So we're going to start and recap this. And then we are going to work on a actual small 4-petal one. And then I have an even different like bloom like thing that I'd like to try and show you the different arrangements for the dots for the different flowers. If you like what you're seeing here, sign up for my newsletter. It's down below. It says it's www.meganbaileygill.com. And sign up is basically it. As I do this right here, I am going to wet my palette because I don't know where my spray bottle is. And that's fun. So I'm going to wet some of these that are really nice and beautiful colors. Koi Watercolor palette is just gorgeous. It's so, it's beautiful. Okay, so let's get maybe this one. All right, we'll deal with green in a minute. Okay, so the question is, does it matter how many dots and also like what arrangement they're in? So I'm going to start with a loaded watercolor brush. This is a number 8. It's got a pretty good point on it. I think that's kind of important. And I'm going to start with some color here. Look, I've got a pretty good amount of red on there. You can even see it. And I'm going to start with 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Now that's a pretty good size dot. So I'm going to bring it up so you can see. You see that? Like they're glistening and beautiful. All right. So now I'm going to actually come in and get more. And I'm going to go 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, and 1, 2. Okay. Now, to make it bow out like an actual bloom, what I'm going to do is take a second color. I'm going to take orange and I'm going to put it on this side and this side, on both sides. Notice how big those dots are. They are quite big. All right. All right, now this one's starting to bleed, so we're going to start there. Now, it is okay to rotate your flower or paper. I think it actually works well. So I've got a really good clean water brush. Like there's a lot of water on this. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to start at the tip here. And I'm going to just bring it around. Now, that's kind of a hook, right? And I'm going to hook this one. And I'm going to basically I have a nice little oval shape. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to see if I can't just move that puddle together. Now, I'm kind of moving that color around to just see what that does. Now I'm going to come in and do the other one. I'm pushing down quite hard to get that to happen. So I'm pushing down. I've got a lot of water on my brush. And notice it pools right here, which is great. Now, I think I'm going to take a little bit of water and I'm going to put it in and watch it bloom. Okay, beautiful. Now, I'm going to try to get as close to this one as possible without touching it. I call that kind of like the halo effect. I don't know if that's what you want to call it. It's okay if they bleed together. So I went around in a loop, and now I'm going to add a little bit more water to this little middle part. See if I can't just dab that all together. Beautiful. Rotating some more, and I'm going to do the same. This one I'm going to make more skinny. I say that. And pull in. All right, and now I'm going to do a little bit on this side. And there's the hook. Bring it around. Bring it together. That is so pretty. All right, so that is the 5 petal, right? Now, what you could do is you could come in with some red, and you could put the dots, because anytime the flower right there in the middle of the flower is always darker. There's a few exceptions to that, like maybe when it's a yellow right in here, but then you just paint it yellow, okay? So, and notice I'm just dotting it. Now notice there's some real good puddles here. You can see that because you can see the gloss of the paper, but you can also tilt your paper to make it move around. Now, do you see how it's not bleeding everywhere? That's because watercolor goes where watercolor is. It's great. He's so smart. And then I'm going to just bring in a little bit of these orange blobs just to add a little bit of variation here. Now, I'm going to steal from this one. So I didn't go get more color. Did you notice that? I'm stealing, borrowing. Let's call it borrowing. All right. And we're going to put this right in here. All right. And then I'm going to leave this one sit. Okay, so that was basically, I'm going to do this dot pattern right here so we can keep up with it. So basically what I did is 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Okay, then I did 2, 2, 2, 2, and 2. Then I did 2 oranges per side. Right? Okay, so that gives us a little bit of information on that's the pattern for this type of flower, which kind of makes sense, right? It's fatter in the middle part there, right? Okay, so that's this one. Now let's get another one out, and this time let's try this right here. Okay, so this one right here, what we're going to do is we're going to try a different dot pattern, and we're going to see how that works also. Okay, so this is a little clusters. It's little clusters, and it's also only 4. And notice that there's some white spaces, white dots in there. That's very little. So I'm going to start with bright red again. Okay, and this time I'm going to do 1, 2, 3, 4. So I'm doing 4, and then I'm going to come out and I'm going to do 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. Okay. That's about all I'm going to do here. Okay. So I started with 4. Now this is where it happens. I've got my water on my brush, and I'm going to start with this little spot right here, and I'm going to come out and do almost the same thing, but not really, right? Like I didn't do a hook. I just did a little bit, and I left that tip really by itself. So here I'm going to do this one. I'm going to get really close. I'm pushing down pretty good here. Okay. And what I mean by pushing down is that I am literally pushing down on my loaded water here. Okay, now you're like, that does not look the same. But guess what I do? So now basically I wiped it off like that. And now I'm going to come in on those edges and pull them in. Okay, now that's one. Back to the cluster. You got to do a cluster, right? So we're going to do it very close together now. So we're going to go 1, 2, 3, 4. We're going to do 1, 2, 1, 2. I'm going to get a little bit more. Now, is that going to touch? Yeah, it might. Which may get confusing, but we'll see how that goes. So I'm going to start here. Notice I used a different red for this one. So the point of this whole tutorial is basically to go, the arrangement of the dots does make a different type of flower petal. So you could do a whole series of experiments with what kind of dots you want to make. Now, this is a more red, what's the word? This one, and I'm putting a little bit more orange in it, an orangey red. All right. Now, what do? I pull just gently. I wipe it off to where it's very nice tip, and I'm going to pull it. And you don't have to pull too much here. I mean, you might not even be able to tell this on screen. All right, so that's a nice one. Let's do another one. All right, I'm going to do that. Let's do this one here. We're going to do 1, 2, 3, and 4. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. All right, going to my water. Lightly pull out, push in and around. You can rotate it. Okay, and then notice how I'm moving my paper. You don't always have to have it perfectly straight there. Some people feel that way, and I just don't think that's necessary at all. All right, let's do one more, and then we'll call this finished. So, or we'll call this one finished. How's that? 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, and now I'm going to get 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. All right. There you go. We're always starting with a tip and bring it down. I love watercolor because it does so many different things. Now, one of the things that I told you to watch for was how it had a little bit of holes in it. We don't really necessarily have holes, but what we do have is we could take our tip, this is some good technique here, and kind of come in and make some. And you see how when you pull it out just a little bit, how more interesting things become just a little bit. Doesn't that look more real? And the reason it looks a little bit more real is because it's giving more of a 3D effect. And just by adding that little bit of, I'm going to call it glamour lines. Is that a thing? I just made that up. Okay, so there's that. That's pretty good, right? And I don't know if we're going to get to green today. Or let's go back to this one. Actually, let's do one more thing. Let's make a note that this is this dot. All right, so we did 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. And see, technically, look at the cluster difference. There's 2 different clusters there. All right, that looks great. Now, I'm going to go over and I'm going to go to the green on this one. We will get to this one next week or some other time. All right, now, believe it or not, I want to make some of those glamour lines in here because I think that would really be nice. And bring it out. You see how I'm just bringing a little bit out here, okay? And Now let's get some green. So I'm wetting my palette first. I'm going to get that olive green. I love the olive green in this palette. It's just so pretty. Look at that. All right, so I'm going to take that. Now I'm going to say we're going to push down and up. I don't have enough paint on my brush, so I'm going to push lightly, push down, and then push up. And go, okay, I'm going to push it right next door. And I've got that. Now I'm going to do that over here. Very close and push up. Okay. And I'm putting it right there in the middle. And that's going to be that flower. Pretty good. All right. Now let's come over here to this one. Now this one is very liney, right? It has some lines in it. So I'm going to actually change my color to more of a, I don't know, bluey green. And first I'm going to make my lines. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of start. I'm ghost painting. Do you see that? I'm not touching. I'm just going to pull it like that. And then I'm going to pull this. And I'm not going to touch anything. I don't want them to really, there's something about this pattern that I don't really want things to touch too much. I want it just, I'm barely touching the paper there. Now look, all of that is wet. So one of the things that I can do is come in here with a different green. And remember I said it will travel only where you have water. And I am putting little dots of green and it's doing all that for me. Maybe I pull it down. Now let's do our leaf. So on this one, I'm going to push down and up. And I'm going to push down and up. And now I have this little hole here. One of the things I'm going to do is I'm going to just go, I'm going to leave that barely there. Do you see how I left that line? Now I'm going to do the same trick that I just did, and I'm going to get a darker color and add it to it in that spot. And I could even tilt this up a little bit. Notice it's leaving that whole area right there down the middle. And so it's making the, what I'm going to call it the seam, but the vein, I guess it's the vein. Right? Now, another way you can do this is that you can make this. Did you see how I did that? I kind of wallered it around. Okay, wallering. That's a real technical term. And now I could come over here, divide it out, get as close as possible, and waller back together. And again, I can fake those peaks. All right, now this one's darker than this one, but I really love the way that turned out. So I'm actually going to take a lighter green this time, and I'm going to put it in here. And add just a little bit of difference. And that would be this one. Now this is a little too wide for me. I'm going to just pull that together. And that is my dot exercise for my flowers. So what we learned today was that the dot pattern does matter. Okay. And we learned that we don't have to connect everything. We also learned that the watercolor goes where the water is. And we learned a lot of control with our brush because we had to get it close together. Now, one of the things that I'm going to do with this right here is I'm actually going to bring a little bit right here so they touch. Don't have to though. And isn't that nice? That's beautiful. All right, and that is our lesson for the day. If you like this lesson and you want more of them, please subscribe to my YouTube channel. I love doing this and I'd love for you to keep watching. So I will see you at the next Paint, Flowers, and More. If you want to see me more, sign up for my newsletter down below at meganbaileygill.com/sign up. See you later.